Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 126. Well, the week has come to a close. Gonna get another episode out for you to listen to. I know I said I'd put one out every day, but yesterday just ran out of steam. But definitely gonna finish out the week strong. This is an amazing episode, just a lot of fun. Obviously, before the coronavirus pandemic became a very real thing, I was planning on doing a series focusing on about 20 or the top 20, top 25 teams in the nation that were going to be competing for the national championship at Grayhawk at the end of May, early June. One of those teams was Clemson. They were ranked about 22, 23 in the country at the time, and I was very fortunate to get some time with Coach Larry Penley. This was his 37th season at Clemson. You know, Larry was a phenomenal player, won the South Carolina Mid-Am Championship, the South Carolina Amateur Championship. So he's a great player, played on the mini tours, which as soon as I found out, I was like, oh, we got to talk about that. But we spoke about a lot of the great players that have come and gone at Clemson. You know, probably most recently we're looking at Jonathan Byrd and Doc Redman and Lucas Glover. So just had some great stories. We talked a lot about coaching, a lot about recruitment, how his players prepared for tournaments. And yes, I know the national championship is not going to happen this year, but still a lot of great lessons, a lot of great information that Coach Penley shared. Had to get this one out. There are going to be more episodes involving college players and college coaches coming up soon. You just saw one from earlier this week with Coach J.C. Deacon from Florida. So we're going to keep doing those because I'm getting tons of feedback. Don't forget, follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Every single episode is at thebackoftherange.com. I know I ask you to leave a review in Apple Podcast, but I understand that takes a little time and there's a few steps. So maybe just take a screenshot of you listening to an episode, post it on your Instagram page. Basically, just please spread the word. Please tell as many people as possible about the Back of the Range. As I've been doing all week, just trying to let everyone know when these are recorded. Some are after the coronavirus pandemic became a reality, some are before, so just kind of want to make sure everyone is aware. This episode was recorded on Thursday, March 5th. So let's get started with this episode. Coach Larry Penley, Clemson's men's golf coach, welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you?
It's great to be here, Ben. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we just got done talking about the weather issues you're having up at Clemson. I think you said about the third wettest spring that you've had. You don't have to deal with the things that maybe these Northeastern or Pacific Northwestern schools have to deal with all the time, you know, with cold weather and snow. But what does this actually do for your preparation and for your spring, trying to get the team into the best shape possible to compete in the postseason?
Well, we don't have the cold, so that's kind of but today, it's 50 degrees and raining. So you kind of put that in perspective. It is chilly, but we are able to hit balls, kind of over a covered area and hit balls out into our driving range. So it's not like we're really missing much practice. Our time on the golf course has been very limited.
Okay.
So usually we spend our worst days playing golf and then our best days practicing weather-wise. We've kind of reversed it this spring because we haven't had very many good days. So we really have tried to take all the good days that we've had and get out on the golf course and spend as much quality time out there as we have. But the guys have they've really done a good job. They've kind of embraced the challenge of learning all of our indoor practice facilities, which, they kind of looked at them in the past, Coach. We don't need anything inside. Well, now we do. So,
yeah, of course.
But it's kind of been fun. We have a great putting system inside, and we've used it quite a bit. And, we're just waiting on this weather to break, but it will soon enough.
Okay, so I wanted to get back to what you just said there. You use the bad weather days to be on the golf course and the good weather to be inside practicing. Am I getting that right? And maybe walk me through exactly what you mean by that as far as the purpose of it. Or usually,
usually we do that. Usually I like for them to play in worse conditions.
Okay.
And I like to save the really good days to really get some quality practice.
Okay.
Well, the spring has been so poor weather-wise that we've kind of reversed that. We've taken what good days we've had and really made every effort to get on the golf course on those days.
Okay.
And then practice inside on the rainy days. And I mean, it has really rained. We're currently underwater. Lake Hartwell, which borders Clemson from two sides, is at 660 feet. Right now, it is at about 662. It is 2 feet over full pond. So there's nowhere else for the water to go.
That doesn't help.
And it's still raining. I mean, it's pouring all. It's 100% chance all day today. So it's still getting it. So.
Well, we're at the end of February, or I'm sorry, we're at the beginning of March while we're trying to, while we're talking now, and obviously just several weeks away from a lot of these postseason tournaments that you gear up all year for. This is your, gosh, I'm going to make you feel old, but I feel like we're friends. I could do this. It's your 37th season as the head golf coach at Clemson University. You started back, now you played at Clemson, I mean, all ACC player back in the early 80s. You spent 1 year as the assistant, and then they hand the reins over to you. What did you know about coaching in 1982?
Nothing, really nothing. Well, the guys, the seniors that were on that team were freshmen when I was a senior. So
okay.
I knew everybody.
Okay.
And it made the transition so much easier, I think, for Coach Robinson, who was our coach, and he was destined to be the athletic director. So that's kind of how that happened.
Okay.
So my coach became the AD. He had to obviously give up the golf team. And I was playing and living down in Homestead, Florida. I was playing on that old Space Coast.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, this episode's going to go this is going in a better direction. I didn't even know you played Jason Goosey. Yeah. Oh, we're going to get into all sorts of stuff now.
Oh, yeah. And I had been down there actually for 16 months. And I can remember Mr. Robinson calling and, look, you're 2 classes short of graduating, which I was.
Okay.
And I need some help with this golf team. He said, you want to get up here and help me? But he said, I can't pay you till you graduate. So I remember jumping in my old Mustang and driving up 95.
Wow.
I came straight to Clemson, and I've been here ever since. So that was in, that was in
81.
Spring of 82.
Yeah.
I think it was spring of 82. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it took me a while to pass. I had put off advanced cost accounting and an industrial management 405, which was quality control, which is all math. I'd put them 2 classes off, and I had to get back in somewhat study mode, but I squeaked through them and I got them passed. And I think my first year, he paid me $13,000 to be the head men's golf coach. So,
oh my gosh. Okay.
Which was a lot of money for a 23-year-old single man.
Of course. I mean, got to keep things in perspective.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. So and this has been just a incredible ride, and we're going to get into a couple numbers later about accomplishments and years you've been doing this, but let me ask you just a couple questions here about and obviously established player. You got your amateur status back after you played professionally, and amateur champion in South Carolina multiple times over, and the mid-am champion. But I want to hit on a couple things that you're working on now with your team. For the average amateur, they may look and see where a pin is located, and if they're lucky enough to have a pin sheet, that is. And then if they're not, they're looking at colors of flags, seeing if it's front, middle, or back. Can you maybe talk about what a college coach does to prepare their team when they're doing tournament prep on site at a tournament?
That, believe it or not, is probably that's our biggest job once we get to the site.
Okay.
And I mean, if they're looking for their games, I've done a poor job. But once we get there,
right,
We are all very confident in our preparation. We're very confident in how our ball striking or our putting. We're going to have to get used to the green speeds. But our next deal is, we only get one practice round, and we really have to do a very good job of charting out some type of a game plan. And they're all different with every player, because every player has different strengths and weaknesses. And, they have to know their game enough and be honest enough to where, this plan is going to work the best for them. But a lot of that's whole locations, and one good thing about coaching for 37 years, I've got whole location sheets darn near for every college tournament in America.
Oh, gosh.
I know where the holes are going to be. So I pull out the old whole location sheets, and when we go through the practice round, it's, guys, here's short-sighted. Here's death by Bula Bula over here. We got to miss it here. Here's where our miss is. And then once we set that up, and then we obviously identify all the green light flags. Here's a green light hole. Attack. So that's kind of what Coach Bird, Jordan, my assistant, is very good at it. We use Decade. We use Scott Fawcett's theory. Not to plug him, but I'm telling you, it works.
Do it.
It works. It's documented. It's millions of shots on the PGA Tour and where they would play from. And I just think it makes perfect sense to go ahead and use all that data and then try to get our point across to our players. I mean, I've always been a conservative player anyway. When I played, it was more about fairways, keeping the ball in play. The game has changed.
Yeah.
These kids want to bomb it, and they do. But they need to know when to pull up on the reins just a little bit. So we kind of try to help them with that.
Yeah, well, and that opens up a couple other questions. How do you handle a situation where you have a player that is supremely confident in their abilities, which you, of course, want? They want to play a hole a certain way, but it may clash with your vision of how it should be played, or maybe with the data. Is that someplace where you kind of step in and maybe, draw your line in the sand? Or do you say, hey, if this kid's feeling really confident and I don't want to, strap him down a little bit. And how do you handle a situation like that?
Well, you certainly don't want to break their spirit.
Right.
And you certainly don't want to do anything that might jeopardize their confidence. And I tell them all the time, I'm going to give you the green light if you're totally committed. Now, if you're committed and you think this is the right play, hey, we're still going to make mistakes. We just need to learn from these mistakes.
Right.
But just because we get a green light second shot opportunity on a par 5 that might be a 50-50 play, that doesn't mean that's the right play. And if you're still not totally committed, in the back of your mind, if you're thinking, I might not ought to do this, but the macho thing to do is to go, then don't do it.
Right.
And we try to get them to where they know the difference. But look, if they're totally committed and they believe that this is the right play, I'll let them do it 10 out of 10 times, and then they'll learn from that mistake.
Perfect. Yeah. You mentioned the how the game has changed. The kids want to bomb it, and I've seen some of these kids at whether it was last year at the Walker Cup or at previous college tournaments that I've been to, and yeah, they just absolutely kill it and destroy it. But the players that I saw last year at the Walker Cup that were really the most impressive were the ones that could play a game under adverse conditions. You mentioned being 50 degrees and raining. Well, it was not a whole lot better over there. It was blowing quite a bit. How do you, how do you identify players, whether through recruitment or when you do get them onto the team? How do you kind of help them with their strengths when conditions are not that good and you just can't let it fly and just bomb and gouge your way around the golf course?
Well, one thing that we really try to stress with our players, regardless of what their strengths are, regardless of what their weaknesses are in their games, and we're always working on both of those. I mean, your strengths usually are always going to be your strengths. So they need to be at high premium. We're always working on our weaknesses. But one thing that is for sure is the lowest score will win. Golf is that way. The low score wins. It is our job, and it's their job as a player to find a way to shoot the lowest score. And it changes so much from player to player. and we work on different things. I mean, I've got some guys that are great with their drivers, and they can dominate a golf course with their drivers. But if their short game or their wedge game is not particularly good that week, it's just going to be an okay week.
Right.
They still need to keep that short game very sharp. They still need to keep that putter very sharp. And then we'll work on other parts of their games to try to shoot lower scores. But once they get the concept, all right, this ain't about being pretty, and it really isn't about being the macho guy here.
Right.
Low score wins. Let's find a way to get the ball in the hole in the least number of shots.
No, that's well said. I always wonder about that when, like you could bomb it, but if you still got to make putts, you still got to get up and down, still got to have that 78-yard wedge shot that you can get close into a back right pin. So you still have to have all that. So let me ask you about recruitment. This is a question I just recently asked. I just had Coach Ann Walker, Stanford women's coach, on the podcast. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from that episode, and a lot of it had to do with just kind of a topic we tackled about junior golfers. I know Coach Bird helps out with a lot of the recruiting. You have these 15 to 16-year-old kids in that range, whether they're boys or girls, but they're playing competitively. They're entering a lot of tournaments, and they're under a lot of pressure. Every round is available on a website somewhere. There's ranking points up for grabs all the time. What are some of the things that maybe you look for out of kids that age, and maybe share your thought process around recruitment to maybe alleviate some of the stress that some parents and juniors deal with at that time of their life?
Yeah, mine's a little bit different in the fact that I really don't care to recruit young. I know a lot of coaches out there today are just going crazy young. I mean, I'm talking 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
I might go watch a phenom if he's ripping it up at 13 or 14, but there's no intent for me to make any type of contact I just want to see this kid play.
Sure. You just want to watch a show.
No, I just want to watch a show. Now, once they get a little bit older, there are a lot of things that I think that are very important. Of course, the biggest one is this a kid I can have a relationship with? I mean, is this a kid that's going to trust me? Is this a kid whose parents are going to trust me? To me, one of the biggest compliments a parent can give you is to, hand you their child for 4 years. I mean, that's the ultimate compliment to me. So, can this kid, I want to see how he interacts with his parents. Is he respectful? Jordan and I both have turned off of kids that, have argued with parents because they brought them the wrong colored Gatorade, or they didn't have a turkey sandwich and I had to bring you a ham sandwich, and the kid blows a gasket. Well, if he's doing that to mom and daddy,
he'd do that to
he's
you.
He's not going to have a whole lot of respect for me, and then in turn, I won't have a whole lot of respect for him. So, other than golf, I think it's the ability to have a relationship. It's the ability to get along, be a good teammate. I mean, I tell them all the time, the majority of our tournaments are in a van. We drive. We're blessed in the Southeast to where, I've got the number 2 team in the country in Georgia Tech 100 miles from me, and probably the number 10 team in the country in Georgia is 60 miles from me. So I don't have to go very far to get all the competition I want. So we drive a lot. Well, you really get to know good and bad, when you get a team in there and you spend 2 or 3 hours in a van together. I need to like them. They need to like me. Our personalities need to be very similar. And that's kind of how we recruit.
You got 7 of the top 25 teams in the country in the ACC, and you're one of them. So Georgia Tech,
good.
Wake, I mean, you got your hands full with, you don't have to go traveling far to find competition, that's for sure. So let me ask you this one, just to kind of drive this point home. Can you perhaps share a story? I mean, you've had numerous players through your 37 years that have gone on to win on the PGA Tour, play Walker Cups, win USAMs. Can you maybe share a story about one of your well-known former Clemson Tigers that has experienced professional success that perhaps maybe, wasn't the hotshot junior coming in that really grew under your program that is now getting achieving success?
Goodness. I'm not picking on Doc, but Doc Redman never amazes me. And I say this because it's when we recruited Doc was a very late recruit, very late. I mean, it was rumored that he was going to Auburn, and then the North Carolina schools. He's right outside of Raleigh. We had heard a lot of different things. Well, I just reached out to him. I said, look, if you're not committed anywhere, I'd love to get you in for a visit. And he said, Coach, I'd love to come in. And at that time, his pedigree was just okay. I think he'd won the Carolinas Juniors, but it wasn't really anything special. But after that, and after he committed, he went on a pretty good run to where I think he was ranked in the top 5 in the country, which kind of surprised a lot of people. Well, one of the biggest things that I really liked about him, sitting down with him, he is a kid with a plan. He is a kid with a purpose. And he is going to do everything he possibly can to get better and win the day every day. That's a hard maturity level to teach a bunch of kids. Doc already had this. And when people was looking at his game and they're going, I'm not sure about this kid, I'm going, no. He's got it.
Right.
He's got it. He's going to figure this out. And he told me one time, he said, Coach, if I can get 1% better every day, help me get 1% better every day, and I'll get to the tour. And everybody's laughing at him.
Sure.
Well, shoot, he's there. He actually made it. He actually made it on the PGA Tour in 4 events.
I know.
On the tour he made it.
Yeah. That I'm gonna follow that up at a later time, but because I have a whole question about that whole thing, but. Yeah, and those are things, just to my point earlier, none of what you just said about Doc Redman shows up on a, AJGA rankings list. That's all stuff you learn when you actually sit down and talk to the kid.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I did learn something about a major, and I told Jordan this. Doc is brilliant in mathematics. And he wanted to major when he was at Clemson, his 2 years, he was in math science. He asked to be put in the honors program. He said, Coach, don't they have an honors program here?
Oh, gosh.
Well, I had never had a player ask about, they're always looking for an easier way out. Doc was wanting more. But what I learned about a math science major is there are no shortcuts. There are steps, there are processes. You can't jump right into a math program or a math problem and go straight to the answer. There are steps and processes that have to take place. Well, Doc was already used to all that. So setting up a plan for him to improve his golf game and set up a plan to get to the PGA Tour was really easy because I knew he'd follow it.
Yeah, that's how his brain works.
And he did, because that's the way his brain works.
Yeah.
And it was it was so fun to see. It was so fun to coach. I wish everybody would have an opportunity to coach a Ben Martin. Ben was the same way.
Okay.
To coach a Ben Martin or a Doc Redman, and just see how a true champion's mind works, because it is eye-opening when you see it.
Interesting. I never realized that about the math and science, but that's got to be that's just pure. That's just plain as day. That makes perfect sense. You've been doing this for quite some time. You were inducted into the Collegiate Golf Hall of Fame at the age of 44, and you have a national championship under your belt. Won that in 2003. I know that there's more room for more trophies and accolades and honors, but how do you stay motivated and focused each and every season?
I don't know. It's gotten harder.
Okay.
I won't lie to you. It really has gotten harder. The recruiting has gotten harder.
Yeah.
I still love the coaching. I still love the interaction with the players. I actually still really enjoy the competition. I don't play anymore, so my competitive juices are kind of vented through my teams and my players. But the recruiting has gotten kind of sour. I don't like some of the new rules. I don't really care too much for the way our sport has gone in the last 10 years. I'm not a big fan of the match play.
Really? Okay.
I'm still convinced that I mean, it's great for our sport, and it brings a lot of excitement if that's what you're wanting. But if you're wanting to crown the best team in the country and crown a true champion, you'll play 72 holes of medal play, and it'll show you.
Right.
You know, and I still believe it has cost Oklahoma State at least 3, maybe 4 national championships since we've gone to match play. But you know, that's just my opinion. But as far as staying motivated, it's I mean, I love the guys. I love the guys I've got now.
Right.
If I had to motivate kids, I would get out. As long as I'm continually recruiting kids that are self-motivated,
right,
and come in like Doc Redman and Bryson Nimmer and really want plans to get better and really work hard to get better, man, that makes my job so much easier, and it makes it so much more fun.
Yeah. Coach, you've won 77 tournaments as head coach of the Tigers, 4th in NCAA history for a coach at one school. You're 2nd among ACC coaches. You trail former Wake Forest coach Jesse Haddock. He had 83 in his career. You know, being that close and that competitive with him, I'm sure you have some sort of a story. Tell me about the relationship that you had with Coach Haddock.
We had a great relationship, and it's I miss him. He passed not too long ago.
Yeah.
But he was such a he was such a joy. He you know, he knew nothing about golf. He was left-handed. I don't think he could break 100. But as far as, you know, being a coach that got the best out of his team and got the best out of his players, he probably was the best at it. And I always enjoyed spending time with him. My recruitment, it's kind of funny how things work and how I ended up at Clemson. My senior year, he left Wake to go to Oral Roberts. And if he doesn't go to Oral Roberts, there's a really good chance I go to Wake. They brought in Ron Roberts, who was the coach then at that time from Georgia Southern, and I didn't get a very good vibe there. And then I take a visit to Clemson, and lo and behold, you know, it's almost like that was in 1977, and I've never left.
Right.
So it's funny how things work. But you know, my relationship with Coach Haddock was always very special. I don't really have one particular story. I am in no means the 83 victories that he has will, to me, always be the best, because he coached half of his coaching career when we still played matches.
Yeah.
You know, we just had head-to-head matches. We might have played 3 or 4 tournaments a year. I know we had a medal play ACC championship. Obviously, we had a medal play NCAA championship. But we really didn't start playing in tournaments until, you know, kind of the late or the early to mid 70s. So Coach Haddock spent the majority of his coaching career just playing head-to-head matches. So the 83 victories that he has, I think, was done in about 15 to 18 years.
Wow.
So it's really impressive what he did. That number would mean nothing to me. As a matter of fact, I will always see him as being, you know, the godfather of ACC golf, so to speak. And I know Coach Hepler's probably going to end up beating that record anyway. So that, you know, it's really not that important. It's flattering to get as close as I am to him, but it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's really not. If it was, I could schedule 83 wins. Trust me.
Sure.
But it's not helping my team. You know, the fact that we want to try to play and compete against the best teams in the country every week, that's the only way my team's going to get better, and that's kind of what I try to focus on.
Yeah, you've obviously, like I said, I mean, I know it's not maybe not be your target, but you've racked up quite a collection of wins there, and you know, the big one, 2003, that national championship, your team was just absolute juggernaut. And you talked about, like, you're not a big fan of match play, but it's a reality, so you know it's something that you have to deal with. Do you find yourself having to coach your players up on the finer points of match play strategy, or is this something that just kind of evolves naturally? How do you approach that aspect of it?
We are right in the middle of a match play tournament within our team as we speak.
Okay.
An individual. Matter of fact, we're down to the final match, and Jacob Bridgman, who is a great player, preseason All-American as a sophomore. He will be playing Turk Pettit, who was an All-American as a freshman, is now a junior. They will be playing in our final match Saturday morning at Sage Valley. That'll be our championship match.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it's really been fun. We have to. I mean, they know match play. You know, when we're playing and practicing here, and they go out to play. I mean, all right, I'm gonna play you for a couple bucks, or I'm gonna play. So they do play match play, but it's really difficult when you try to combine it with team points and team aspects, and you know, that's the hardest part of it, I think. But you know, as far as just going out and playing match play, they get a pretty good dose of it.
Nice. Well, I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit. We were talking about Doc Redman, how he literally, I think you're right, like 4 events got him his tour card on the PGA Tour. And then you just mentioned Bryson Nimmer, you know, All-American in 18-19. I think he's the first player in school history to have a stroke average under 70. He has not had the same level of success. I know he's played some Mackenzie Tour events. He's played some Korn Ferry Tour, but he hasn't had the same level of success as Doc Redman. How do you continue to advise a player like Bryson Nimmer on, you know, their journey into professional success? I mean, it's almost like there's no, I mean, is there a rhyme or reason sometimes as to why some players make it quicker than others?
No. In Doc's case, Doc wasn't sure he was going to turn pro when he did.
Okay.
So he had leases. He had already signed housing leases in an apartment complex, which I think was the best thing that ever happened to him, because that year, the first year they turned pro, he stayed here with us. So he still did everything we did. He was able to stay in his routine. He was able to stay in a very comfortable environment for him, do what he knew that made him successful. And, you know, he really benefited from it. Bryson had a lot of options. Bryson had graduated. Bryson wanted to go back to the coast where he was from. Right now, I think he's living right outside of Charleston. I think Bryson misses our structure a little bit.
Okay.
And he and I have talked about this. And, you know, I would love to get him back up here just for a couple of weeks, just to get back into a very familiar, very comfortable environment. And let's start working on some positives again. But he'll figure it out. He is too great of a player.
Right.
And he'll get this. It's just going to take him a while. Doc caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, you go from Vancouver, you take a red eye from Vancouver, fly to Detroit. You've got a 9:00 tee time. You're playing for 4 spots. You shoot 61 and you get one of them darn spots. And then you go finish second in the tournament and make $760,000. That does not happen often.
Right.
That is a very rare occurrence. And then he, you know, followed it up with a great week at Wells Fargo and made another 100,000. And next thing you know, he's got his card.
And that's it. And he's there.
So anyway, yeah. Bryson will get it. It's just going to have to be a different. It's going to have to be a different process for him. I don't know if he can catch lightning in a bottle like Doc did. It's going to have to be more of the journey.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to have to get through to the Korn Ferry Tour. Maybe he can do that through the Canadian Tour. You know, he's fully exempt on the Canadian, which he's got somewhere to play. But once he gets to that Korn Ferry, I'm very confident it won't take him long to get to the big show.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of the guys that play the minor league golf tour down here in South Florida, and I've spoken to guys on the Latin America tour and Canadian. Just it's, you know, the Doc Redman story is why there are hundreds and hundreds of guys chasing the dream, because, you know, it can happen just that quickly.
That's right.
All right, well, let's get you on a couple of fun stories. I can't let you out without at least getting one story of your days on the JC Goosey Tour. I mean, come on. We've talked about all these kids, and I am going to ask you about the team that's getting ready for the national championship. But, you know, my eyes and ears lit up as soon as you said JC Goosey. I'm like, oh, I know there's gold there somewhere. So you can embarrass yourself. You can embarrass the golf course you played, or maybe the guys you played with. I will give you full reign here, but I can't let you out of here without at least one story from your mini tour JC Goosey days.
Well, people don't realize that in that day, that was the only other tour.
Oh, of
there
course.
Was. I mean, you could have gone to South Africa and played. I think people were starting to go to Asia or maybe to Japan and play. But, as far as a boy in the States or a young man in the States trying to get to the PGA Tour, that was the only way. I mean, that was the only way to go get some experience.
Yeah.
So I'm down there with Donnie Hammonds.
Oh, okay.
David Peoples.
Okay.
Walt Zambrisky, who was incredible.
Yes.
And one of the best players I have ever played with was a black gentleman named Ron Terry, who hit the golf ball as pure as anybody I have ever seen, lived in a van. But these are the guys you're competing against every week. And trust me, they're saving shots for dollars. I mean, they are professional golfers. They are doing this for a living, even at that level.
Right.
They're not buying experience. They're trying to take every cent you've got.
Right.
So that was an education for me. I learned real quickly that nobody give a crap what I shot. They just soon me shoot 85 every day and get the heck out of there.
Right.
Larry Mowry was another one who was a great player on the senior tour forever. And if you didn't think Mr. Goosey wouldn't take your paycheck, you're crazy. And he loved picking on the rookies. He would always like to have the rookies around to see if they wanted to play a little after tournament game. And I saw many a guy endorse their check over to Mr. Goosey.
Oh. That's so good. Oh my gosh. I knew.
But it was an incredible experience. I'm trying to think how many tournaments I played. I probably played close to, 26 to 30 tournaments maybe. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a chance to win one. And it was at Grand Cypress, right there in Orlando.
I know.
Which was kind of close to where I was staying at that time, and I had a very unfortunate backside. I actually had an unfortunate last two holes. I hit the ball in the water off the tee on 18, down one, after having the lead on the front side. And this was one of the bigger tournaments. This one's first place is 18,000, which that was a big purse. Yeah, that was a big purse. Anyway, I scrambled my way to an 8, and didn't get anywhere near that 18 grand.
not that you've let it go and you don't think about it at all, but
only every day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. National championship, 70 some odd wins, but you're still thinking about an 18 grand you missed out on it at Grand Cypress.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's golf right there. I mean, that's perfect. Right. That's golf. All right, let me get you out here on this one. Let's talk about the current squad that you're running with to get you to the national championship to compete. I got regionals, you got ACC, got all these teams in your way. Who are you looking at to kind of lead you down there? You got 5 guys that you can take with you. So talk to me a little bit about your current team. Let's give them a little pub. What's the plan for the rest of the season?
Well, I really like this. I really like this team. I mean, this is the exact team as last year minus Nimmer. So, you take that 68.7 stroke average out of this squad. And then, our first team meeting, I'm telling them, look, we can't replace that.
Right.
No one person can replace that, but collectively we can. It's going to have to come a half a shot from you and a half a shot around from you and a half a shot from you. And that's kind of the way we've approached this year. And right now we've got, let's see, our entire top 5. Bridgman is 70.7. Pettit's like 70.9. And then we go 71.2, 71.4. So we've really done a good job. And I do like this team a lot. Although I only have one senior.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's a lot of experience. The 3 juniors that I have been starters since their freshman years. and that's Colby Patton. That's Chris Patton's boy, Kyle Cottom, and Turk Pettit. And they are all great players and are doing a great job. And you got Bridgman as a sophomore. I've got Zach Gordon as a sophomore, who is also a tremendous talent and a great player. And our senior captain is William Nottingham, and he's been a starter now for 4 years. So
won the North-South.
Won the North-South. That's exactly right. So it's a good bunch. We got beat in a playoff last year for the match play.
Yeah, SMU.
Which was kind of disheartening. And you know, I do want to make this match play before I retire. Because I honestly believe if you get to the match play, it's a coin flip. It really is a coin flip. But we were so close last year that I think it's in the back of the guys' minds. You know, this is what fuels us every day. We're going to get back there. And I am very confident in this team. I know our ranking probably isn't that good. I think maybe we're anywhere from 17th to about 21st.
Right now, you're actually 22 as of today. Today's
22.
March, yeah,
okay.
Today's your March 5th. You're 22 on golf stat. But yeah, like you said, I mean, does it at once you're at that level, it doesn't really matter. You just got to get in there and get going.
Well, I'm very confident that this is a top 10 team. They haven't seen our best golf yet, and it's just a matter of time before we bust loose.
Very well said. Really was a pleasure speaking with you, and it sounds like your guys are in good shape. I know there's tons of other things that we could get to, but hopefully we'll do it again soon. I'm glad you stopped by the back of the range. Good luck on the way to the NCAAs, and we'll do it again soon.
Always a pleasure, Ben. Thank you so much.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Coach Larry Penley from Clemson. Can't wait to see them back out on the golf course. Want to see all these college teams back out on the golf course. Don't forget, follow us along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Always posting things on the gram, the Back of the Range podcast. Put out a lot of episodes recently, so I don't blame you if you've fallen behind. Every single episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. So stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you again next time here at the Back of the Range.